Jaha. Ja. Mm. One, two. Come on. Yeah. Hello, hello. I don't think we have any sound in my microphone. Do you think that? Let me just check. We'll check if there is any sound. Oh, it's there.
Yeah,
it's there. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Goto 10. My name is Christopher, and I work here at Goto 10, and I also work in Linköping Science Park. I always ask before we start Tech Tuesday how many there have been here before, so I don't do that today and ask how many have not been to a Tech Tuesday before. Oh, interesting. Perfect. And there is also a few out there in cyberspace who have not been to Tech Tuesday before, and we just wave to them up there to the camera because we're streaming live on YouTube. So, Tech Tuesday is a collaboration between 5 companies in the Linköping Science Park where we talk about tech and go really into more of the technical things than just like a presentation and highlight things. And the best Tech Tuesdays is absolutely the Tech Tuesdays where you are asking a lot of questions. Maybe not under the presentation, but maybe after. But I will let the people on stage decide what to do today. Just remember, if you have questions under the way, they will repeat your questions, so the question will also go out to the live stream. Okay? A little bit about Internetstiftelsen and Goto 10. This is a meeting place, both physical and online. We are here in Linköping and we are also in Malmö. If you become a member here, you can sit here and work for free, and you can also do events here for free. We will support you with technical support and a little hosting, and we will take care of all the administration thing about doing an event. So if you have companies or you have interest, there is in the tech, so to speak, in the tech area or in the tech arena and into internet related, we are here for you and we can help you. But nothing more for me today. I just want to welcome on the stage Gabriella and Stefan.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's a great pleasure to be here. We're going to talk a bit about sustainability and try to take away some of the drama, maybe the bad guilt, and all the impossibilities. So we want to talk a lot about business modeling, how to make money instead of see it as large investments that just cost a lot of money. I'm Stefan Ericsson. I have more than 30 years of experience from Swedish high-tech industry, both in development and production and supply chain and so forth. I've both been engineer and manager. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got furious, literally furious, when I understood that I spent more than 25 years of my career based on 2 assumptions that I couldn't live with, and I still cannot live with them. More about that later. Let me instead introduce Gabriella. Apart from me, she's born and raised with sustainability. So, please.
So yeah, I'm Gabriella Rehme, and I only have 3 months of work experience, but I have a huge interest in driving sustainability transformation, and I did a Master of Science in Energy, Environment and Management. So I guess that's why I'm here to talk about this today.
You've got a huge competence. So all questions, please send them to Gabriella instead. So a bit about Combitech. We are a fairly large consulting company with 2,300 employees, with sales approximately at 3.9 billions. We see ourselves as a tech and solution partner in almost all Nordic countries. And our speciality, from my point of view, is that we transfer knowledge between the defense industry and Saab. Saab is our we're wholly owned by Saab. And it's in our assignment to transfer knowledge so that all Swedish industry can benefit from what we learn. This is for me a core part of why I work at Combitech. Every day we strive to shape a smart and resilient society. I don't going to say any more about Combitech, so.
Yeah, I will continue with the sustainability at Combitech instead. When I began to work at Combitech, I looked around on our strategy. So, because I always learned that sustainability always streams from the management down in the entire organization, and that's why it's so important for management to recognize it as an important question. So I was rather pleased when I saw that our company has an ambition to drive this change forward. And I think it's really, really great that they recognize the added value of working with sustainability, that if you work and strive towards it, you can become a better employer, but you can also create a societal impact. So it's a lot of added value when working with this.
Yeah, so during all these presentation, we use Combitech as an example that we don't need to do very much to reach all the new possibilities within circular economy and become a more sustainable society. So this is directly fetched from our strategy. So we haven't done any change to it, not for this presentation. It's the core of our strategy.
Yeah. And we also think it's very important to recognize the trends that are part of our society at the moment. And then we have seen that the key market trend, one of the key market trends at the moment, is the green transition happening in the society, which has a lot to do with the technology maturing, enabling this transition further. And it becomes very important for industries to do this. It's very important that we recognize that this is something that our customers are going to have to do and help them with. We've also recognized that one of the key people trends is sustainability. It is very important for the employer to work at a company that does sustainability work. So this is very important for companies to recognize and work as an internal driver to keep moving this forward, I believe. But even if this is the key market trends and the key people trends, we haven't come very far in the industry when it comes to this, because it is kind of built on this linear economy that Stefan will talk more about.
Yeah, but I got furious about. The two basic assumptions is that the Earth have an infinite amount of resources. Literally, infinite amount of resources. And on the other side, our world has an infinite regenerative capacity of the world. So it can heal itself in an infinite way. And we all know that it's not correct. It's wrong. It's really, really wrong. And I can't live with it. So, on the positive side, for hundreds of years, within the industrialization, we become expert in digging up tons and tons of stones and making business models and lots of business models, and finally get high-tech components or products, and they don't even cost much. You can buy a mobile cell phone today for less than 1,000 kronor, and it's huge amount of resources required to do that. But as it is today, it ends up on landfills, and that's crap. So, if we are world leading in this, how can we do it in a better way? Now, we can do it in a circular economy way. This picture, you can find several of pictures, hundreds of pictures, a way of visualizing how circular economy looks like. I tend to use this from Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Ellen MacArthur is a fantastic woman, and the foundation is really impressive. They do this for real. But all visualization of circular economy tend to say the same thing. Design out waste and pollution. And for Combitech's sake, this design is important, because that's where we work a lot. Keep products and material in use for as long as it is possible. Keep them on an as high value as possible, as long as possible. So let a car be a car as long as possible, and so forth. And use the regenerative natural systems that exist. And if you do this, you see not only the arrows in the linear economy, but you also find new arrows. And here you find an infinite amount of business models, business opportunities. And they won't even cost that much. Yes, please.
So to be able to do this transition, companies often have to question their business model and work with business model innovation. That's the way we strive forward, and that's the way we change. Numerous external factors affect a business model and can strive for business model innovation. Currently, these are some of the external factors that at the moment are driving business model innovation. Sustainability, along with related regulations and compliance, are crucial to consider at the moment, because it's a huge driver for the business model innovation for many companies. So yeah. But why should a company strive to do a business model innovation to make it more sustainable? It's not just because they have to. Often it will get potential benefits from being sustainable, if it's for compliance legitimacy to strengthen your brand, or if it's an external orientation where you look at your natural resources and want them to keep coming in. Or you can have a moral or ethical orientation and just look at it like it's the right thing to do. However, not a lot of companies do the last bit of it. It's not always enough to have the moral or ethical orientation. And that's why I think it's the most important to look at the competitive advantage and look at sustainability as a business case. Because there is a business case with working with sustainability. You can create market opportunities which can increase sales and profitability. You can also look at it as a way to lead to new product or process development. Or you can look at it as a possibilities for new value offerings, new customers and new decision makers. It can also open up a value creation towards stakeholders. And also it helps your brand value to increase. with the talent retention or shareholder value. So that's one of the biggest reasons to why you should work with sustainability. However, if it was this easy, companies would have done it by now. So of course, there's a lot of barriers to drive to sustainability or circular economy. This is taken from a report called the Circular Economy Outlook, made by CradleNet, Nordic Innovation, and RISE, the Research Institute, where they did a summary, basically, of all the common barriers that industries in Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Norway are recognizing at the moment. So, as we talked about, many doesn't really see the business case at the moment, and their current business model isn't really adapted to work with circularity. And it's also, for some companies, a low customer demand. They don't really feel like their customers are going to pay for the more sustainable product. I thought it was very interesting that for Sweden, a lot of companies said that there's a lack of skills and know-how in this matter, which I think is very, very important for us to fill that gap to be able to move forward. But if you look at the percentages, like, yes, there's a lot of barriers for these different strategies, but the percentages are kind of low. It's 50% at highest. So if we instead look at the drivers, the percentages is a lot higher, which we see as very positively thing. So if you look at, there's a lot of 80% of companies can see a business opportunity when working with that type of strategy. And you can look at, some see it as a big customer pressures for them. So I think it's just a very positive outlook on this, and it was released like last week. So I think it's very positive for the change, that yes, there's barriers, but there's a lot of drivers as well.
Yeah, and it's a big research. Almost 500 companies answered the enquete and the questions behind.
Yeah.
And that indicates that it's not only early adopters today that tend to see sustainability as a business opportunity, but a lot of companies.
Yeah. So yeah, so taking into account the thing we have discussed now, and that it's very important to transition to sustainability, and that there is benefits, drivers, but also barriers. There's also a big question to why now, and why is it really important for companies to start to work with their sustainability transition. It has a lot to do with the global trends. Right now, the world is maybe not focusing on sustainability because of other issues, but it always comes back, and it will always become be important because we've gotten that far. And I think the technological advancements, like many things are mature at the moment, so it's just about implementing and using the technology we have right now to do these things. But I believe that the biggest thing right now is the regulatory pressure that is coming in, which kind of creates a bigger market demand than it has been before. And I will try to describe this regulatory pressure and why it's so important for companies to look at the moment.
Yeah, you can like it or you don't.
Yeah.
I'm not very fond of this kind of regulations, but in a time of change, I see it as absolutely necessary. And when it's implemented, it will go away, or we'll find ways to make it easier. But at the moment, we cannot choose to do it. We must.
True. So if we've tried to map out the EU sustainability landscape at the moment, and I think for many it's still a very uncharted area. So I will try to describe it a bit. Before, politicians have left it kind of voluntary measure to report on sustainability and work with these kinds of questions, and I think they kind of recognize that that's not working. So they have to make it a kind of large demand, and that's why they introduced several frameworks supporting called the Green Deal, that kind of want to shift a paradigm shift of how we report and how we look at sustainability data at the moment and how we report it. So the Green Deal represents a comprehensive effort to climate neutrality by 2050. And in there's a climate law, and the climate law kind of is a legal obligation for EU to achieve these, so they can't really... What will happen if they don't, I don't really know, but they have made it a legal demand at the moment. And the purpose is to provide a coherent framework to drive this change forward. So if we look at the CSRD, it's a reporting directive which mandates that corporations disclose the impact that they have on people and the environment, but also based on the opportunity and risks that they see from social and environmental issues. The directive regulates certain information that companies must report, and it requires assurance that sustainability information is disclosed. So companies need a lot of sustainability data that they haven't collected before, which makes it a huge challenge for people or for companies to be able to report according to the CSRD. We also have CBAM, which kind of regulates. It aims to ensure that the imported goods outside of EU is carbon neutral. So if I buy a good from South America, I will have to pay a carbon price for the carbon that they release elsewhere. So it will become more expensive to buy certain goods that have a lot of high carbon. We also have the taxonomy, which aims to create a common language for economic activities. So it's a way to kind of move money to the more green activities and the more green companies. Because funding and the financial market have a demand on them that they have to invest in a certain amount of green activities. And it's up to the companies to be able to disclose that they have these economic activities that are green. So it's kind of the way for EU to move money towards investments that are more sustainable. Lastly, which is a very, very big one, I think a lot of companies work with at the moment, is the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. And it aims, or it says it's a directive that wants companies to look at their entire supply chain. And they want companies to disclose their entire supply chain and all of their suppliers and how they affect the environment. They have to look at how their suppliers potentially adverse and how what kind of impact they have on the environment and human rights. This directive have regulations for civil liability and also penalties if you can't help your suppliers to reduce their impacts. So this can have a huge effect on companies and their supply chains. And I believe that many companies, especially in Sweden and the EU, are working internally with their environmental impact, but they do not have control over the supply chain. So a big question for companies in the future is how are they going to have control over the entire supply chain and their third-tier suppliers and all the way? And how are they going to get data from them, and how are they going to control them? So just really to show...
So the basic idea behind the reporting is so that all the sustainability information is transparent, so that companies can assess or compare sub-suppliers in an equal way. You can compare it with the financial reporting system. But you must follow the standard. Yes.
Yeah, they want to lessen the greenwashing that's happening at the moment. And I really just wanted to put an emphasis on the supply chain sustainability challenges that we have. Do you have a question? The blue is what we have had at the moment. So we have had, first it started with the Global Reporting Initiative. It was not a demand, and then we have the non-financial reporting, and then we have the UN global goals that kind of set the way for everything that's coming at the moment. So that's green is the new. Exactly.
Yeah. And for the audience on the internet. The question was what the difference between the blue and the green ones.
Great, I forgot that. And yeah, I really just wanted to put an emphasis on the sustainability challenges in the supply chain. This is where a lot of the resources for companies are going to have to go. You don't just have to look at your competitiveness issues that you have before. You have to look at your environmental issues and your social issue through the entire supply chain for every supplier that you have. So this is a huge data collection that you need to do to be able to reassess and assess what you have. And it's it will take a lot of time to make this work. And to make this work, we need a lot of technology. So that's really like an emphasis on how important.
But once you get this working, everything is going to be handled by computers.
Yeah.
Not a lot of manual efforts at all. But today, it's a high mountain to climb.
Yeah, and for a lot of SMEs, they don't really have the resources to make this work and to have the resources to look through the entire supply chain. So that's, I think, they need a lot of help in that, and I think we can help with these types of questions. It's important to map out the entire supply chain to be able to reassess and move forward.
Yeah, but as the same as for financial reporting, small companies use other help than doing it themselves. So
as we said, technology is going to be one of the most important things in driving this change forward. Nordic Innovation did, I believe, a really good summary on how and why certain technologies are driving change and why it's important. And then we did a little bit of analysis and looked at Combitech and looked at the technologies that we are very good at. And we recognized that a lot of the technologies that drive practices and sustainable practices we do work with. And I think a lot of other companies need to do this to really see that the core competencies that they have will drive change. It isn't necessarily the sustainability department or a sustainability expert. It's rather the people that work with these types of competencies that are going to be important in driving the change. We can do a strategy, but we will need the technology, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is another way to look at the same argument. So Nordic Innovation also did a lot of large workshop where they looked at how applied are certain circular strategies. And then we looked at what kind of essential competence do you need for these types of strategies. And it's really just to look at that every company has the competencies that they need to be able to do these strategies and to do this change. It's IT and market and construction, supply chain. It's not really a sustainability department again, it's the whole entire company and the whole entire company's competencies that are needed in driving the change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an example that when we did an inventory at Combitech. And I'm positive that if you look at the same, look at it in a similar way at Ericsson or Saab or Fujitsu or Toyota Material Handling, you find similar setup. We have the technology, we have everything in place. It's just looking at new ways of using it, new business models.
Yeah, new business models. I think a lot of companies maybe fail with their sustainability work because they put it on a sustainability department and then they think that they are going to solve everything and that they are going to strive and make the change. They can't. They really need sustainability at all departments, and it needs to be worked with at every level to be able to drive the change. Very often it kind of is a department of 10 people working with sustainability, having all these questions on their table, and that's not viable. So yeah, I think the key is to make it through the entire organization and to look at every step, every level, I guess, of a company. When talking about sustainability, it can often become kind of abstract, so we wanted to just bring a case of what you can concretely do in driving the change forward. So this is an example of how you can look at supply chain management and what needs to happen with the procurement strategies. When you have a resource base, you often look at and categorize your entire resource base based on a few types of risks. Traditionally, you've looked at the financial risks and the data supply or the supply risk, and kind of categorized them and worked with the suppliers based on what category they have been in. Now, with the new regulatory pressures and the new directives and demands, there are huge new types of risks that you need to look at to be able to fulfill all these new requirements. So this could be carbon emissions risk, and it could be data supply risk. There's also a lot of other environmental risks, which could be social risk or whatever. So it really just, what we're going to do, we have to look at our strategies and we have to look at it the same. Of course, we cannot drop the financial risks or the supply risk, but it's so much more complex and we need to look at it in a bigger way. So that was a case that they looked at new risks. And now the next step of this case would be to look at the technology and how are we going to get the data collection in, and how are we going to get the data, and how are we going to, who owns the data, who is going to analyze it, and what we're going to do with it is the next big step here.
Yeah, a lack of data is going to be a high risk. You're going to get böter. You need to pay if you don't have, if you don't can report the data.
Yeah.
If you cannot summarize the data in your product, you're going to pay.
So, so this is another way to look at it. So we have mapped out kind of strategies for enhancing a customer's business through certain types of circular economic practices. And the letters is just different departments within us, just to show that it's a lot of different competencies, but also it needs to work, as you need to work together to be able to drive these types of strategies and this forward. But it's a lot of different things. It's sustainable sourcing, but it's also design, or it's digitalization, or it's just compliance support. So it needs, again, just to see how broad it is and how many things you can do with the things that you already have. I think it's one of the what we want you to take with you from today.
Did you leave out your other example, the one with tools?
Yeah, we did have another example. I didn't think we would have the time for it. But it's basically, if you look at maybe design for durability or a circular economy or closed loop systems, you should look at how are your process flows look at today. So that we some people did a work with a company where they saw that they sold tools, but then they did a take back system. So the company sold the tools and then they buy later in time, they buy it back for a lower price. And then the tool they got back, they either resold or they took apart and used the parts that they could to make a new product, sell it again, to create a new value streams and to create a more circular flow of the materials that you get in. So that was a way of just how you look at flows in another way.
Yeah, in that way you can decouple the new resources from the added value. So when you add value by adding guarantees or refurbishment and so forth, you add value without extracting new material from the ground. And that's also an important part of circular economy or sustainability in the whole.
Absolutely. So what is kind of our key takeaway, or what is it that we want others to take with them from today? It's basically that working with sustainability practices and circular economy practices doesn't imply a huge risk, and it doesn't imply that you have to change your entire way of working, or that you have to change your resources or your competencies that you have within your company. It's just to look at it in a little different way, to use the same offer that you have but use it in a different way, or to look at it as a business opportunity and see it as a way of how we're going to get more revenue streams, instead of just thinking about it as a huge investment. And it often, the step to become a more sustainable business model isn't often that big. It's just a little bit different way of looking at what you have at the moment, I guess. So we just want, it's a change that often aligns with a company's business model.
Yes. And as a starting point, you can always imagine that you do a mix from selling products to having them as a service. When you start thinking as your product as a service, then you can also find these new business models. What's required in order to have it as a service instead of just a product? All companies will not be able to supply as a service due to financial problems maybe, but you can find these new business models. You use your imagination.
Yeah. And I think that was everything from us today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
You talked about the scope free for some customers, but I was wondering if you ever have implemented scope free for any of your customers. I mean, it demands a lot of data and everything, so I was just curious if you've ever successfully implemented it.
No, I would say no. We meet a lot of companies that are curious, looking at it and see the problem. Some companies tend to look at each other and say, I haven't got the requirement, and the other one says, but I cannot give you the requirement since I don't know what you want or what you can deliver. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in that situation.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question, and you said that in the future this will be done by computers and systems, and I was just curious if you are building one of these systems that will be able to do this.
We could build it, we can do it, but at the moment Combitech is not that kind of company. We don't build software and sell it. But if someone wants us to help doing it, for sure.
Thanks.
And I think Gabriella has an idea around it.
No, but I think it's important to remember that all these regulations and all these kind of questions is very, very new for companies. So some companies haven't really even touched it yet or worked with it. So we think that the demand is going to increase with time, but at the moment it's very, very like basic. They're like, oh, we don't even know what customers we have or what suppliers that we have. And they have to start thinking in that way before they can understand that they need technology for it to happen.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's a separate tool. I foresee that the large ERP suppliers will add a functionality. So IFS or Intensia or SAP for sure will implement modules for it.
Yeah.
Do you have examples of branches or companies that are very good on this, or other example? Those that lag behind and are not doing anything.
That's good.
I was at a seminar this spring where LKAB did a very good seminar on how they work with these types of questions, and I would say that they have gotten very far. They've gotten far in their way of thinking, they've gotten far in how they are organizing around it, they've gotten far in how they work with their suppliers and building relationships to get this data and make them understand why they need the data. I believe that they have come. So I think Vattenfall as well has, I think, come rather far. And then we have examples of companies who haven't gotten very far yet.
Yeah, I thought of Saab as a bad example earlier, but then I thought a bit more about it, and essentially all products that Saab delivers have huge requirements on support and longevity, and they are required to be able to do a lot life extension after, for instance, 15 years, to be able to work more than 50 years. Most of the products Saab sells has a kind of buy back and sell to next customer. We all know of Viggen. We sold it to Sweden, took it back, and then sold it to Austria. And I think Gripen, some of the aircrafts to Czechia or Thailand is buybacks from Sweden. So it's not, Saab is not as lousy as you can imagine sometimes. And the example LKAB is fantastic. All the sustainable mining project between LKAB, Sandvik, Epiroc, ABB and Combitech is a fantastic technological and system project for just sustainable mining. You do a lot of development regarding autonomous electrical vehicles in the mining. We have Boliden as a great example. 1/3 of the gold that Boliden produces comes from electronic waste. 1/3, and it's pushed into the same factory as the ore from the mines. I can continue with how many examples. Yeah.
Yeah, you showed a picture of the circular economy from Ellen
Goto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can seem a bit confusing and complex at first glance.
Yeah.
And also those regulatory from the EU and the global stuff. A lot of companies is scared, I figure, for taking the first step. But I was just wondering, what do you feel is the first step for a company to take that is scared and doesn't have a foot in the sustainability market and not a lot of know-how?
I would say that there are very, very few companies in the world actually that could fulfill the complete circular economy picture. But you can also look at it this way, that in the liner example, there are very few companies that take the whole value chain itself. So I think some companies will just take a small part of it and don't get that much of a problem. Some large companies will have a huge challenge today to meet, for instance, the scope 3 and all the products and all the reporting required.
Yeah, thanks.
And I believe that what's fun with sustainability is that companies are often very open with what they do and what they have implemented and how they're working with these kinds of questions, because no one has the answer. And I think a lot of companies recognize that this is not something I can solely do on my own. So to get yourself in these networks and learn from other companies and discuss it together, I think is the key, because you solely alone as a company or an SME can't really, you have to look at everything else. And that's what I think is fun with sustainability is many companies are very, very open with how they are working today to drive this change forward.
And what's required?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I just these new legislations about the reporting and data collection, etc. I mean, that's some kind of administrative tools. How will that drive the actual change? You made a comment there about this is to avoid greenwashing, or I mean, what is the won't just companies do minimal effort reporting and then we're done with it?
Yeah, good question. I think what the EU wants is to drive this and make it very comparable, so that you can look at your own data and be like, why am I this bad in this if others aren't? And it's a way of pinpoint where you're gonna put your resources and drive forward and work with change. And there's a lot of contradictive at the moment opinions about if these regulations are going to be too much for companies and it's going to just become an administrative question, and that the people that work with sustainability innovation will only work with data collection and reporting. And I guess that's a big risk, but I hope that it will drive and make companies more aware of their own business and how they are affecting society and people for their entire supply chain. But that's a risk. It's a big risk, and I don't think a lot of companies know how they're going to solve the reporting demand question at the moment. I think a lot of companies will just look right now at data governance, who has the data, who owns it, who is going to take it in, and that of course makes the sustainability, maybe innovation, a little bit less. Yeah, but
you're aware of that. We lack plastics in the world today. Tasted it. We lack plastics, and we all know that in vad heter det? Stilla havet, Pacific. Yeah, the size of 3 France of these plastic islands are floating around, and still we have a plastic brist, shortage. And why? That's because the regulation today says that you must use 10%, 20% recycled plastics. And today we cannot find the recycled plastics. Think of it as a business opportunity.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Good. Give these two one more applause for today. Thank you very much, Gabriella and Stefan. Thank you very much. And we know with Tech Tuesday it always is like this. There is a lot of questions and good questions today. I'll get back to 2 of the questions in a moment. But there is also people that are a little shy, so maybe you can stay around and have them one by one. Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. Really important topic to talk about, and to talk about what you asked a little bit before and what you asked. This is exactly why we have Linköping Science Park, because we are addressing those 2 issues, about a lot about the administration part of it, then the greenwashing thing, what to do and all those kind of things, but also if you're a little bit scared, then you can come to us and ask us about something, and we will hook you up with the company that is a little bit more prepared or a little bit longer way in this chains, and so swing around and we will help you on the way. This is the last Tech Tuesday from this year, but we'll be back next year in February. Thank you very much for coming, and see you out there, and see you out there in cyberspace.
Thank you.